I spent the last 7 days locked in my room analysing 47 different investment properties. Most of them were absolute garbage, but a few of them actually might be the deal that's going to get me closer to my 250,000 in passive income. In today's video, I'm just going to break down the lessons I learned, the due diligence checklist that I actually made to analyse each property, and the cash flow snapshot we're going to go through to figure out how much it's going to cost you to hold each property. And so you're going to know which properties are right for your investment brief. My name's James Hawthorne, and I'm on a mission to build a $250,000 a year passive income through real estate investing. And in today's video, I'm going to break down step by step exactly how I'm looking for properties for my next investment. Let's get into it. Now, in my investing journey, I'm up to the stage where I'm starting to analyze properties to find the right deal that's going to fit into my portfolio to kind of build out my investment portfolio. And today I'm going to show you exactly step by step what I'm doing to analyze investment properties. So the first thing you've got to do is create a property brief, because there's 15,000 suburbs in Australia, millions of homes. You've got to narrow and filter down from the millions of homes to find the right 5 to 10 to invest in. In order to do that, you've got to have a clear property brief. So it first starts with defining what your budget is based off your borrowing capacity and your savings. Then figure out what sort of rent you want to have. Do you want to be in more a capital growth strategy where you've got a lower rental yield, or do you want to be in a cash flow strategy and you've got to have a higher rental yield? So understand your yield, and based off your prices, figure out how many beds and baths you want. What sort of foundation do you want for the actual property? Whether it's you want a slab, which is ideal, do you want it on stilts, which is going to have more maintenance costs, and you want to know what sort of materials you actually want the property to be made of. And for me, I'm going to want to find brick, or whether it's brick veneer type of houses, because they're got better foundations, they're better built, there's not as many headaches when it comes to maintenance. Then you want to figure out what's your actual strategy and the business plan for the property. So you've got to categorize that into the strategy, the exit strategy, and when you want to release equity, if that's part of your business plan for the property. And so for me, I'm looking for an owner-occupied area where there's a higher owner-occupied percentage to compared to investment property. So ideally, about 30% of the suburb should be investors and 70% should be owner occupiers. Then I'm looking to do a little bit of a reno, not too much, just a deep clean, and maybe add a fourth bedroom if possible. And my exit strategy is 1 to 3 years, do a bit of a value add, pull deposit out, and use that as equity to buy my next property. In long term, sell the property off, pay the debt off, and use the profits that I made for a deposit for a commercial property. And I'm looking for that equity lease over 3 years. So looking for a cool spot that's potentially going to grow. So once you've defined your brief, you understand what you need to actually start filtering for and what you actually need to start looking for when it comes to buying a property. So once I created the brief, I then go to start filtering properties. So I go to realestate.com, search the area that fits my brief. So you go onto HTag. I made a video about this, so how to find hotspots or booming areas based off your brief. So for me, based off my brief, Geelong looked like a good area. So I go into realestate.com and I start filtering based off my brief, so that the houses, the price range, the amount of bedrooms, bathrooms, and then I start looking at properties. Is this a brick veneer? Does it have the concrete foundations? Is there any room to add a fourth bedroom in the property? And then once I've got a short list of 3 to 5 properties, I start doing due diligence. So I first calculate the costs. I've got a spreadsheet that we're going to go through later. It calculates all the upfront costs, all the ongoing costs, and how much it's going to cost you, whether it's negatively geared or positively geared. Then you've got to start doing due diligence. So I've got a due diligence checklist where we're going to go through the red flags and some negotiables, and figure out and calculate all the properties that you shortlist, which one has the most which one checks the most boxes, and we're actually going to score each property so you know which one's the highest rated. So now I'm going to go through step by step showing exactly how I'm implementing this system. So we first come onto realestate.com. You've got to know which suburbs you want to be looking for. So let's say you've done research on HTag and you figured out we're going to go for Corlo, which is in Geelong. potentially figured out this is the right suburb for me. It's got low supply, high demand, so I think property prices are going to increase on the long term. It's got good fundamentals of strong population, over 200,000 people in Geelong. The population's growing. It's a diversified economy, and this is the area that you want to focus on. So once you've figured out the right suburb, you then want to start applying filters. So you're going to go for a house. The max price to say be 600,000. You're looking for a minimum of 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and let's say minimum land size of 500 meters. And then you just search, and you start going through the properties. 550, 550, 550. Start to get a bit of a price range. So prices are 500. There's one for 400. 500, 500. So you've got a bit of a price range. Most things are about 500 to 600 in this suburb. So now what we're going to do is actually conduct due diligence on this one property. So we're going to go for this property for 550 to 600,000. And the first thing we're going to do is go through this due diligence checklist. So we're first going to look through, is it in a flood area? Is it prone to bushfires, heritage zones, public housing, airports, highways, councils, and if it's got any pools? So these are the red flags that we want to check off first. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this address, go to this VicPlan website, and then what I'm going to do is paste the website in to Glenoid Court, Corlo, and it shows us the lot. And if we zoom out, we can start to actually layer on to see if it's in flood zones, bushfire zones, heritage zones. And as you can see, it's pretty safe. It's not in any of the flood zones, bushfire zones. So you can see over here it is, but the property is over here, so it's all clear. So if we go back to our checklist, it's not in any flood, bushfire, or public housing. It's not near the airport, I know that. And is there any major highways? There is a major highway, but it's not close to the property. So it's not in a major highway. Council zoning, it was residential. And let's go look at the property. Is there any pools? No pool. So we can check that off. Then we start. So that's due diligence on the actual lot of the property. Now we're going to actually do due diligence on the actual property itself. So we're going to go through the land shape. We ideally want a square property or a rectangle property, not something that's a very odd shape, like triangles or trapeziums. So if we look at the lot shape, it's a square house. Does it show the lot? Yeah, so it's a bit of a weird shape, which isn't ideal. So we're not going to check that off. We'll leave that unchecked. The land size, we want it to be greater than 400 square meters. So the land size is 643. So we're going to check that off. I'm going to just go through all of these. So it's going to take not too long once you get used to it and you go through it all. So the land size, check that off. Land slope, it was on a flat slope. We don't want to be on an incline. Or year built, is it more than 35 years? It probably is. Land to asset ratio, 50%. Yeah, it was probably about 50% of the actual land was occupied with the house. Now we've got to go onto Google Maps and look at, is there public transport and schools in the area? So to do that, you just highlight this, right click, Google search that suburb in this actual property, and we click on the map. So it actually shows us where the property is. So we can see where it is in Corlo. It's not far from Parks, which is good. We're going to search for schools. So we can see there's also a bus stop nearby, a couple bus stops. If we look for schools, there's some kindergartens, a Catholic school. Doesn't seem like there's many schools in the area, which isn't good. There's a college up here, not too far. Yeah, but it seems like all the schools are a bit further down and over here. So for our due diligence checklist, it's close to buses, which is good. There aren't many schools, which isn't great. No private schools, but it is close to recreational areas. There's no tidal issues. Now we'll go back to the actual Google Maps, see if there's any poles or power lines, if it's at a T-junction or if there's any main roads or anything. So if we go back to looking at the property, it's down a little laneway, which is good. So it's not in a busy area. So we're going to look for any poles. So the poles are on the other side of the road. They're not right here. There's a big pole right in the middle of someone's front yard, which isn't great. but there aren't any poles for our property. It's on a flat lot. It's on a little lane, which is good. So we'll go back to our due diligence checklist. So there's no big poles. It's not near a roundabout. It's in a little lane, so there's no big roads. So we know it's over a 3-bed. Let's look see if it fits our living rooms and air conditioning as well. We know it's a brick house with tiled roofs. Let's look at the foundations as well. And we know there's no large trees. And is there room for a granny flat and a shed? So if we look at the property itself, it's on that concrete slab. It's got a tiled roof. Probably not much room for a granny flat. It's got a little shed out the back. It's made of brick veneer as well, which is good. So it's got a good solid build. Let's look for any aircon. It's a solid house. It's got 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, a lounge room, small dining. So it's only got 1 lounge room. Not much capacity to add a 4th bedroom. It's got a little garage and a study out the back. Probably not big enough to make that a bedroom. So we know now checklist only has 1 living room, so we can't check that off. Couldn't find any aircon, but concrete slab foundations. It's got a shed and a little garage at the back, and there's no granny flat potential. So we've done our due diligence. We've got a score of 24. So ideally want 26 or higher. But we can see there's a few things that aren't great with the property. It's a very small house, so we can't add extra bedrooms, which is part of our value add opportunity that we're going to look for the property. It's only got 1 living room. It's not near any good schools, so it's not got that owner-occupier appeal, which is part of our brief. So we know based off our brief, doing this due diligence, we can figure out, is this the right property for us? And based off, the due diligence we've done, it's probably not the right investment for us. So most people, they get their budget based off their borrowing capacity. They then go and look at suburbs that they can afford, and they just buy whatever they can in that suburb. They don't do these sorts of due diligence to actually figure out, does this property match their brief and their overall strategy to get to their end goal? So doing this sort of stuff is kind of helping me figure out which properties are going to be the right for my investment. So once we've done the due diligence and say it passes all our criteria, we then go and start analyzing the actual cash flow, the upfront costs of the property. So we know the property, let's look at the price. So we're going to just say we get on the low end of 550. So we know it's a purchase price of 550. You're going to have some LMI using a 12% deposit. Upfront costs are going to be about $99,000 a year for the deposit and all the other fees. And so let's go and actually see if we can find property for rent similar to our actual investment property. So we're going to look for properties near this one for rent. 3-bed, 1 bath. So we go over to filter, change it to rent, house. Let's go for 3-bed, 1 bath. And let's go in the map area. I like using the map area to find rental properties. So we know our property is around here. So if you look at this one, $4.95 a week, $4.20, $3.50, $4.10. So let's assume we're going to use one on the laneway. So $4.95 for a 3-bed, 1 bath, $4.20. Let's say $4.50 in between. So we're going to rent out the property for $4.50 a week. Ends up being $23,000 a year. So our expenses are going to be $37,000. So we know the income is $23,000, expenses are $37,000. So we're going to be negative $15,000 a year just from this one property. Based off knowing our cash flow, then we know that over 3 years, it's going to cost us about $45,000 just to hold on to this property. So you're needing $50,000 over the next 3 years in capital growth alone just to break even. So that's the power of this sort of sheet, allowing you to actually see how much a property is going to cost you, and then knowing over next 3-5 years how much capital growth I'm actually going to need just to make money. And then you can also see how to make a positive cash flow. If I've got 70,000 in the offset, I lower my interest rate and I increase the rents from $450 to $500. We know it's going to be positive $90 a week, $4,000 a year. So that's what this sheet allows you to do. And so now that's what I've And so that's the whole process I've gone through to actually try and filter and find good investment properties. I first created a brief, then I started filtering properties based off the brief, and then found a couple properties that fit the brief. And I looked through all the properties and I start doing the due diligence checklist and identify any red flags, and I start picking which are the properties most suited to my brief. And you find, out of the 10 properties that you find in the area, you find the three that, have got the highest rating and the highest score based off your due diligence checklist. And then I go and put them in the spreadsheet and figure out how much is it going to cost and what do I need to do to hold it, in terms of the holding costs, and how much the money do I need in the offset, what does the interest rate have to be to become positively geared. So that's the whole process I've gone through. I hope you've taken some value out of this. If you like these sorts of videos, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on more videos like this where I'm documenting my whole journey building out a 250k passive income property portfolio. So don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out.